Could I have the roll call, please?
Councilmember Abdelgawad.
Here.
Councilmember Baker.
Present.
Councilmember Barber.
Present.
Councilmember Burke.
Present.
Councilmember Ingert.
Present.
Councilmember Forster, absent. Councilmember Holman.
Present.
Councilmember Townsend, absent. Mayor Turnbow.
Present. We have a quorum. Would you please rise and join me in a pledge of allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We have no presentations and awards this evening, but we do have a personal appearance. Mr. Jim Haddock is here to address us, the council on the use tax. Mr. Haddock. Generally allow 5 minutes.
Thanks. I won't need it.
Okay.
Good evening. My name is Jim Haddock. I live at 909 Wesley Circle. I'm here this evening to ask you to tap the brakes on the use tax bill 3871. Not forever, just until staff can develop a plan likely to produce a different result. I'll cover 3 topics to support my request. First, I'll give a brief comparison of compare and contrast Raymore's approach with Belton's. Belton's got a use tax on their ballot this year, and they have a little bit of difference in the way they're approaching it. I'll provide an estimate of the revenue a use tax is more likely to produce, and I think this is the point I want to make, is cost the residents. And I'll highlight a few unanswered questions from recent council work sessions. I was not surprised to learn the council was voting to put a use tax back on the ballot for a 3rd time. However, I was surprised and disappointed that Bill 3871 is identical to 2 previous bills, 3595 and 3722, rejected in April 21 and August 22. Raymore is again proposing to fully absorb the new revenue from a use tax, the same as sales tax revenue would be. By contrast, Belton's current 5th attempt, I was shocked at that, to pass a use tax would dedicate 50% of the revenue to the water utility in the form of a rebate. This is currently estimated to give between $12 and $15 a month back to the residents. So essentially, they've conceded that they don't need all of this windfall. Additionally, Belton's council action report included a revenue estimate based on 2023 use taxable sales. While the revenue estimate presented to the council during your 12-18 work session were based on numbers from 2022. This may seem like a small thing, but use taxable sales were up significantly across the state in 2023 after Missouri's Wayfair legislation took effect on January 1st of 23. And the numbers are the way it's trending right now. The 1.314 million you were presented on December 18th is likely to be 44% higher. It's going to approach 1.9 million is what I estimate for 2023. I've spent some time reviewing previous work session discussions and educational materials presented by Raymore over the last 3 years. This included the July 18, 2022 City Council work session, where city staff provided a 7-minute response, but never actually answered the following 2 questions posed by a member of this council. Who's going to be paying it, and how much is this going to cost me? The first one's pretty straightforward. This is 100% coming from the residents of Raymore. If you have an address in Raymore, this is where it's coming from your pocket, nowhere else. In that sense, it's a very fair tax because the people that are voting on it are going to pay for it. How much is this going to cost me? I acknowledge is not straightforward. It depends, but there are ways to provide some numbers. The $1 million April 21 estimate would have cost the average household in Raymore $116 per year. The $1.2 million estimated in August 22 would cost $140 per household per year, average household. The $1.3 million presented last month would cost $151 per household per year. And the more likely estimate, and this is important, of $1.9 million based on the 2023 use taxable sales would cost the average household in Raymore $221. And this is really key. The 1.9 million, I've actually taken 22 million out of Q2 that was acknowledged in your State of the City address. There was a bit of a windfall of an extra potential for $550,000. With that, the use tax in 23 would have been over $2.5 million. Another question posed during the December 18, 23 work session went unanswered. How much is the city collecting from sales tax on recreational marijuana? I don't know how to answer that, but I think we'd like to know that. It's 2.5% sales tax on marijuana plus another 3% special tax on marijuana, and I don't know how much the city is collecting from that. So bottom line, I'm not against the city absorbing $1 million to $1.3 million in additional use tax revenue into their budget. But those estimates are based on Missouri Department of Revenue's pre-Wayfair actuals. They don't include revenue, and they don't include revenue from the 5.5% sales tax on recreational marijuana. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, sir. We'll now move on to staff reports. Mr. Fearborn.
Thank you, sir. I would ask Mr. Gress to make a report for Development Services.
Thank you, sir. Mayor and Council, for the month of December was included in your packet for the Development Services Department. A couple things I wanted to highlight as we close out last year. We ended the year in our department with a total of 181 residential building permits and 27 commercial permits. So it was a good end to our year, and we're seeing some good interest this year, primarily from the commercial side and the industrial park. So a good way to start 2024. Relative to our building activity, a couple things I wanted to highlight within the Commerce Center specifically is that last month we did issue the certificate of occupancy for both Southern Glazers Wine and Spirits for their the bulk of their facility. They have a couple special inspections left for some equipment, but really excited to see them hit the ground running in January, as well as Newly, which received their certificate of occupancy last month as well. So both of those companies will be operational come January, probably mid-January. And specific to Newly, I wanted to alert the council that we are trying to plan a ribbon cutting for that facility with partners from our community as well as the state for their involvement in getting that project here to Missouri and the council's involvement for getting that project to Raymore. So we're trying to work with both Urban Outfitters Newly and the state to coordinate a date for that. And with the council, Planning and Zoning Commission, anyone with the city will be made aware of that date and time for that event here, likely the last week of this month. Looking at upcoming meetings and different applications going through the process right now. No meeting scheduled for January 2nd for Planning and Zoning Commission that was canceled due to lack of business, but next week on January 16th, the commission will hear a couple of different applications, two of which are related to the proposed residential subdivision at Kurzweil and Gore. It also contemplates an annexation request to the City Council, preliminary plat, and rezoning. Pending a recommendation from the Planning and Zoning Commission on the 16th, the Council can expect to see that request at their February 12th meeting for a public hearing on that date. Additionally, on January 22nd, Ms. Lee, our Economic Development Director, will be doing a summary report on the city's incentive districts that we do each year, as well as kind of an overview annual report for our entire department, which she's been working on over the last couple of weeks. So looking forward to her highlighting some events and major projects from our department, and that will conclude my staff report.
Thank you, David. Any questions of Mr. Gress at this time? Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Gress. I would ask Chief Wilson to make a report for the Police Department.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. This evening, I'm just going to talk real briefly about PD citizen reporting. First, we'll go with the blotter. Hopefully, you all have noticed that within the past few months, we've color-coded the incidents to correspond with your wards. Even though all the listed incidents are important, you know, we want to give you the ability to go straight to your ward and see what activity is going on in your ward. This has delayed sending out the blotter as each incident research for ward location, so it's taken us about an hour additional time getting that out on Monday. It really kind of depends on how much activity dictates how long it's going to take for us to get that out. So the more activity, the long it might be a little bit more than an hour. This may change once the CAD vendor changed over to Central Square. The software is supposed to have the capability to have the address tied to specific ward, additional search queries, and the in-depth for crime analysis. This is a number you might want to make note. We currently have 642 subscribers that receive the PD blotter. Those folks that want to subscribe, they go to raymore.com, the police department, down to the bottom where it says services, and just follow the prompts. They'll have the opportunity to review also dated police blotters as well. The Police Department Weekly, this report contains similar information to the blotter, however, it's in numbers such as average response time, average on-scene time, total ACO calls for service, patrol call for service, calls of note. Sometimes those calls of note are a little bit shy. Those are determined by the unique of the incident or frequency or the lack thereof. On-scene time, the on-scene time will always be different from week to week based on type of calls for service, which also affect the time, the report time. So just a normal DWI, that's going to take about 3 hours. So just so you know, next month when I give you the year-end stats, we're going to be at about 95 DWIs this year compared to 49 last year. Wow. This week, the blotter and the weekly both indicated less activity, which is a good thing. Quicker response time, less time to get the blotter out as well. The police department works closely with the city communications department to get additional information out on social media. This is if an incident or situation has developed and needs the public assistance or awareness. We also push out, the fun stuff. I'm sure many of you have noticed within the last couple weeks during the holidays that several of the officers were at the elementary school reading to kids. Some of them were dressed up as well. Citizen reports. Here's, if you don't get anything else out of what I'm saying tonight, the most important part is citizen reports. They can call into the police department, they can walk in a report, email the PD or city website. There's also a tab on the city's website called Report Concern. The citizen will have several categories to choose from, which is basically different departments that they can choose from. And that report is generated and goes to the department. And then also the 474 tips on occasion. We do get citizens attempting to report on PD social media. Even though we make every effort to monitor, it's not monitored all the time. If someone makes a post, a prompt, we'll tell them to contact the police department if they need additional information or additional help, as long as it's not a non-emergency. If we're monitoring, if we're just lucky and happen to be monitoring the post, we down at the PD will also direct the folks to call in or walk in and report whatever's going on. And again, we're not always aware and we're not always monitoring. So it's very important to remember that the PD is not monitoring. And the city's communications department, they try to monitor, but they're not monitoring all the time either. The PD follows several neighborhood social media pages as well, several. However, we are not constantly following those either. That's something that we would do all day long. And we don't have the time to do that, unfortunately. I do see individuals talking with neighbors about different crimes or suspicious behavior. You know, that's great information and that they're sharing with their neighbor. However, that is still not a police report. And it's to make a police report, you have to contact the police department directly. Now, that being said, often what happens is if I take all of you up there, sitting up there, and I work at one end and I tell a story to somebody, by the time we get to the other end, that story may be changed just a little bit. And we always have to play catch up, work our way backwards with watching some of the posts and comments or going out and talking to people to work our way back to the original post and see what's going on. And then I mentioned to remember that number. So the PD also participates in the city's communications weekly report, which basically is the city's activities with meetings, trainings, and internal projects. It's interesting that we have 900 subscribers to that and 600 to the PD weekly. So that's all I have, sir.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions of the chief? Thanks, Chief. Oh, Mr. Holman.
So, Chief, I think I know the answer to this, but you talked about the DWI is roughly doubling this year, and DWI would include impaired by other means other than alcohol, such as marijuana or other drugs, correct?
Correct.
And we probably will unfortunately see the same rise that Colorado saw after they made marijuana legal. We know if you read or research on the web, you'll find that substance abuse and issues such as DWI went up, which caused a dramatic increase in demand for services at the government level. You mentioned yourself, it takes a third to a half of an officer's shift to process one DWI. So hence the need for that probably additional sales tax that the state allowed us to capture, to kind of capture back some of that increased demand for services. Would you agree, sir?
I would agree.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, thanks, Chief. Mr. Fearborn?
Thank you, Chief. Just a reminder to the council that next week is the Martin Luther King holiday, so there will be no work session on next Monday night. We're back to a no work session type situation. Love January and February. There is the possibility, because things, and we'll be briefing the council in executive session for litigation on this, but things are moving rapidly in Jefferson City. So there is the possibility that I may be asking the council to meet on the 5th Monday to brief you all on that and to take some additional steps relative to our fight on the landfill. That concludes staff reports tonight, sir.
Okay, thank you. And I might remind the council, too, that from our conversations that Mr. Fearborn and I had earlier, if this meeting happens on a Monday, but it doesn't happen next Monday, he and I may be gone the following Monday or just getting back just in time for the council meeting, because the committee meeting might be a week from Monday. If not in this next Monday, there's a potential it could be the following Monday, right? Yeah, so we have to kind of be prepared for that. All right. Anybody have anything for Mr. Fearborn? Okay, moving right along. We have no committee reports this evening. We have 3 items on our consent agenda for approval or consideration. I'd entertain a motion to dispose of this item.
Mr. Mayor,
Ms. Abdelgawad.
I move that we approve the consent agenda, including item A, City Council meeting minutes from December 11th, 2023, appointment of Patrick Keys to the Park Board, and acceptance of public improvements, Knoll Creek second plat.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Yes, sir. I'll second the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Holman. Motion's been made and seconded to approve the consent agenda. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously, 6-0. We'll now move on to unfinished business. Could I please have the second reading of Bill 3869 by title only?
The second reading of Bill 3869 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, calling for and establishing the date of the general municipal election to be held on April 2nd, 2024.
Given the presentation that we were given by the citizen this evening, if anybody has any additional questions on this, I'd entertain those at this time.
Your Honor, it's a different item.
Second item.
The presentation by the citizen is the second item on the agenda.
Oh, it is? Oh, and you're right. You're right. Okay. I apologize for that. We have the municipal election to consider first. So moving right along with that, if there are no further questions, I'd entertain a motion for disposal.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve Bill number 3869, calling for the April 2nd, 2024 municipal election.
Thank you, ma'am. Is there a second?
I'll second the motion, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Holman. Motion's been made and seconded to approve the second reading of Bill 3869. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously, 6-0. Now we'll move on to the second reading of Bill 3871.
The second reading of Bill 3871 by title only, an ordinance authorizing and directing submission to the voters of the City of Raymore, Missouri, at the election of April 2nd, 2024, the proposal to authorize the imposition of a use tax for general revenue purposes at a rate equal to the current sales tax rate of 2.50% in the City of Raymore, Missouri.
Okay, you heard my initial introduction to the last bill. I'll just echo that and say if there are any further questions, could entertain those at this time. If not, I'd entertain a motion to dispose of this item. Ms. Abdelwad.
Mr. Mayor, I would like to offer the opportunity for staff to address some of the questions that were brought up, just for clarification. I know how thorough our city staff is, so I'm sure that they have prepared some answers for us. Just maybe a little bit more information about who pays it. I know in what I listened to, that estimate probably of the per household per year in my opinion, probably isn't a great way to really measure or define who's going to pay what when it actually comes to this use tax, along with some of the other questions brought up. So is staff prepared to speak to some of the issues?
We can in general. We always hate to get into a debate at the council level with anybody who's been up, but a couple of notes that I made. First of all, we haven't even addressed with the council what our campaign is going to be, or entirely come to a conclusion that the council agrees with on the exact usage of the money. So I think any kind of address that says you're doing this, somebody else is doing that is a little bit premature until we address the council with the campaign, which we're putting the final issues on that together right now. We never want to presume upon the council's vote. Prior to that, by introducing what the campaign's going to be, we still have time until the campaign hasn't even been filed with the county yet. That's to come at the next work session of the council when you have that, where we'll be outlining in detail what that's going to be. We do know that one of the issues with the increase at the state level relative to Raymore was actually due to the fact that it is not just residents who make these payments. And the mayor will be outlining some of this as well. We have a number of large square footages of industrial warehouse that are going to go in. That industrial warehouse pays personal property tax on extensive equipment that they are purchasing out of state, and they would also be paying a use tax on that if the use tax were to be passed. Those can be used. Those I would count with the term, I always hesitate to characterize a tax that is coming, that's being put on our people. I know the council takes that very seriously. We have proved time and time again, staff feels a great need for this particular source of revenue. So I always get a little bit, can't even describe the word when I hear something like that described as a windfall. I do not believe that this council looks for windfalls at any point in time. Staff has identified significant needs for additional revenue. Staff has identified, and the mayor will be outlining, I believe, this evening, the fact that this is not additional revenue right now. This is lost revenue that this city needs to provide essential services, just to address that particular one. While I know everyone would like to hear about the marijuana sales tax that is coming in, unfortunately, we only have one business that is generating the marijuana sales tax, and it is illegal to call out a single business on the city sales tax that they are paying. Whether it be the marijuana sales tax or the city sales tax, we can't do that, or we would be in violation of state statute. I think that would conclude. We'll have a number of others that we're going to want to outline for the council. That's just a kind of a quick from hearing the presentation tonight. That would conclude staff report. And thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Barber, did you have something?
Yeah, I kind of had a question, just want to clarify something. When I heard the comments about it's going to cost the average, the citizens of Raymore an average number, if somebody doesn't buy anything online, how much is it going to cost them?
Zero, sir.
That's what I thought. Thank you.
Anyone else? Mr. Delgado?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve Bill 3871, placing an online use tax on the April 2nd, 2024 election ballot.
Thank you, ma'am. Is there a second?
Yes, sir. I'll second the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Holman. Motion's been made and seconded to approve the second reading of Bill 3871. Is there any further discussion? Mr. Holman.
Thanks, sir. I have some questions for Mr. Fearborn. Mr. Fearborn, a number of years ago, we contracted out a staffing study. How long ago was that, sir, roughly?
It was just prior to the first use tax. So it would have been 2019, I believe.
Okay, so almost 5 years ago, correct? And the results of that study showed that we were lacking in personnel, in particular in 3 departments, if I remember correctly: Public Works, police, which is number one on our citizen satisfaction survey every year for the most important thing people want to see, and the Parks Department, which gets high marks for all of its amenities. Am I correct, sir?
That is correct, sir.
Okay. And we have been unable to staff up those positions because of things like lost revenue that would have normally been paid had it not been for the advent of the internet. And that source of revenue continues to erode because of that. Is that a correct statement as well?
That would be a correct statement, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Okay, so the motion has been made and seconded. Anything else? Ms. Abdelgawad?
Thank you, sir. Just a quick comment for the public, my opinion, my point of view. I don't feel like the council made this decision lightly. As Mr. Holman pointed out, we over and over the last 5 years have been looking at how can we fund the personnel that we need to really do the best work we can for the city. We're doing a fabulous job. We've got great leadership and we're getting by, but there's no doubt we could use more support in the police department, public works, and the parks department. And as we keep growing and growing and growing, we are going to get to a point where we start to fall behind. And so whether we've answered all of the questions that have been asked tonight, or as Mr. Fearborn said, some of that's going to come as we're moving forward, there is no doubt that the city needs this money to be able to continue to operate at the level we are operating at. And in my opinion, this seems like a great way to get some of the money that's going to help fund our needs. And additionally, as I mentioned before, I don't think that the measure of per household per year that was shared is an accurate measure, because a lot of it's not actually going to be paid by our residents per household per year as described. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Anyone else? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously, 6-0. Could I please have the second reading of Bill 3859 by title only?
The second reading of Bill 3859 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement with Bright Construction for the Dean Avenue Meter Replacement Project, City Project Number 23-899-501, in the amount of $78,330, and authorizing the city manager to approve change orders within established budget constraints.
Thank you, ma'am. If there are no further questions, I'd entertain a motion to dispose of this item.
Mr. Mayor,
Ms. Abdelgawad?
I move that we approve Bill 3859, award of contract for the Dean Avenue meter replacement.
Thank you, ma'am. Is there a second?
I'll second the motion, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Holman. Motion been made and seconded to approve the second reading of Bill 3859. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously, 6-0. Could I please have the second reading of Bill 3860 by title only?
The second reading of Bill 3860 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, authorizing an amendment to the fiscal year 2024 capital budget to provide additional funding for the Dean Avenue meter replacement project.
If there's no further discussion, I'd entertain a motion to dispose of this item.
Mr. Mayor,
Ms. Abdelgawad?
I move that we approve Bill 3860, the budget amendment for the Dean Avenue meter replacement.
Thank you, ma'am. Is there a second?
I'll second the motion, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Holman. Motion's been made and seconded to approve the second reading of Bill 3860. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously, 6-0. Could I please have the second reading of Bill 3872 by title only?
The second reading of Bill 3872 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract with Trezolo Communications Group for public relations and communications services related to the city's landfill opposition efforts.
If there's no further discussion, I'd entertain a motion to dispose of this item.
Mr. Mayor,
Ms. Abdelgawad?
I move that we approve Bill 3872, award of contract to Trezolo Communications Group for our landfill opposition efforts.
Thank you, ma'am. Is there a second?
Yes, sir. I'll second that motion.
Thank you, Mr. Holman. Motion has been made and seconded to approve the second reading of Bill 3872. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously, 6-0. That completes old business. We'll now move on to new business, and we only have the one item. Could I please have the first reading of Bill 3862 by title only?
The first reading of Bill 3862 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement with T.C. Fuller Construction, LLC, for the Recreation Park Trail Repair, project number 23436201, in the amount of $50,480, and authorizing the city manager to approve change orders within established budget constraints.
If there's no further questions, I'd entertain a motion to dispose of this item. Oh, can't dispose of it, do we? Got to go to staff report. I was whipping right through there.
Have to actually get to that question, right,
Well, I
sir?
know we got a lot to do in executive session.
I'd ask Mr. Mustine to make a staff report on this agenda item.
Thank you, sir. Mayor,
Just trying to
members of
keep
the
Nate
council.
quiet. Yeah.
Hey, I'll be quick. Well, I won't keep you long. This is a award of contract for 2 repairs to Recreation Park Trail, areas that have been identified in our trails inventory as high priority for that particular park. We actually have discussed this in a work session. This particular contract was bid out in October. Park Board saw this in November and approved this, and it's before the council tonight to proceed with the repair of these 2 areas. And that concludes staff report.
Thank you,
I do
Nate.
have a dovetail off of this. As the
Okay.
council knows, we are moving very rapidly on trail complete rehab. This is not in conflict with that. These sections were considered before the numbers that we gave the council. So it'll all be in communion together.
Okay. All right. Yep. Anybody else have anything from Mr. Mustine? All right, thanks, Nathan. Now, unless there's any further questions, I'd entertain a motion to dispose of this item.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Dugawad,
I move that we approve Bill 3862, award of contract for Rec Park Trail repairs.
thank you, ma'am. Is there a second?
I'll second the motion, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Holman. Motion's been made and seconded to approve the first reading of Bill 3862. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously, 6-0. That completes our formal part of the agenda this evening. We'll now move on to public comments. If anybody from the public, I don't see anyone here. Yeah, would like to call in. There you go. So we'll move on to the mayor council communication, and I'll start with the ladies this evening. Ms. Abdelgawad.
Thank you, sir. I'll just take a quick moment to recognize Mr. Haddock for coming tonight. I always like when people come and talk to us and ask us questions about what's going on, about decisions we make. I think that's what our government is all about, and that give and take, that feedback is really important to me as a council member, and hate to speak for everybody, but I think we all value that. So just a minute to recognize Mr. Haddock for coming out tonight, and just to let him know that I appreciate his input. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Engert.
I just want to tell fellow council members thanks for their support. This last month and a half, I've been fighting an illness. We're doing a lot better. We're on some new medication, and I appreciate all the help and support that you've given me throughout, as well as members of the staff here as well. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Barber.
Thank you, Your Honor. Yeah, I just want to thank our citizen volunteers. Is it Mr. Keys? Is that how you pronounce it? Yeah. Him stepping up and volunteering for the park board. We can't run our city without these volunteers, and it's very important. Also, want everybody to be thinking about our Public Works Department tonight as they're clearing the streets, and I think it's more than our Public Works Department. I think other departments are kind of chipping in, keeping the streets clean, and our first responders and all of that. So try to stay out of their way, and I know they're going to do the best job they can, and let's hope that it's not as much of an event that they think we're going to have to as well. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you. Mr. Holman.
Thank you, sir. I just want to tell staff across the board, another well-done job, another good year, and Happy New Year, and let's go get them again. You've done it for a long time. Well done.
Mr. Burke.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I had a unique opportunity over the holiday. Got real, I don't know, it was kind of a special experience for me. My wife and I were able to purchase and eat dinner with 5 service members on Christmas night and share the holiday with them. They're deployed at the southwest border, and I got an opportunity to stand in a park and look at the Rio Grande and was very interesting to see and be near what we're seeing on the news, to actually be there in a town where I don't speak Spanish very well, so I was at a severe disadvantage, more so than on a vacation to Mexico in the past. It's very interesting. We'll have to see what's going on, but I was very surprised to hear that we have 10,000 Army troops dispersed along the border in their mission. So this is their 4th year of the mission, and I'm sure it'll continue for many more. Thank you.
Evening, sir. How are you? Go ahead, Mr. Baker.
Just a couple things. First of all, I want to echo the sentiments of recognizing our city staff for the tough work today. I know we probably didn't get a lot of prep down with the rain, but I saw coming in, they were out with the salt trucks or whatever, pre-treating. They have a long night ahead of them, a long day ahead of them. A lot of people depend upon that, and we should all be thankful for that group, and it's a well-deserved appreciation for them. And we also have the live map. I saw in one of our communications that came out today from the city that our citizens can actually go online and look at where the snow piles have been, where they're going, how long since they've been there. I think that's a big asset that a lot of cities probably don't have with that. The last thing I want to end upon, a couple months ago, I talked about one of our local residents who grew up here, Luke Grimm, wide receiver for the University of Kansas. Those of you that saw KU played in the bowl on December 26th, we did win. We, meaning one of my teams. But he was elected to the Associated Press All-Bowl team for his wide receiver effort, having 4 receptions, 160 yards, and 3 touchdowns. So on his first touchdown, they put a graphic up on TV that gave his hometown. It said Raymore, Missouri, and I think that's good national attention. That I had a lot of people text me that night, hey, that's the city you live in, you're a council person there. And text him back saying, hey, he's from Ward 1, his parents still live in Ward 1. But very proud of that, and he is coming back for a senior year to what could be a run at the national championship for the Jayhawks next year. So good publicity. Hopefully next year we can maybe get some notoriety for him in the meeting. I'm maybe going to look out and see if we can get his parents maybe recognized or coming in here for something. But good job, Luke, for a good year, and way to represent Raymore, Missouri. So thank you.
Well, thank you, sir. Thank you for highlighting that.
And I was remiss this evening at the beginning of the meeting. Over the weekend, we lost a friend to the city of Raymore, Judge Jeff Cox, who had served on the city council here, passed away from a medical event that turned into a motor vehicle accident. No one else was harmed, but we did lose Jeff. Jeff contributed significantly to the growth of this community over several terms of office as city council member, and was a local attorney before he became a judge in Cass County. And I would like to recognize his legacy here with a moment of silence, if you don't mind. Thank you, and rest in peace, Judge Cox. This evening we heard from Mr. Haddock with some numbers that I was sure would be espoused, but not sure the accuracy of those, as was brought up by the council this evening. But I did ask the staff to put together some figures for me so I could put together some comments here. And local taxes are vital to a thriving community. Our city, any city, cannot operate without local tax revenue, period. Without taxes, we don't have police to respond to emergencies and other calls for help. Without taxes, we don't have a crew to take care of our parks, which are at the heart of the quality of life in our community. And without taxes, we certainly don't have city workers taking care of the streets like they are doing right now. Since 2013, there has been a 74% reduction in franchise fee revenue from wireless service, equaling more than $2 million in lost revenue. We've seen a 61% decrease in landline franchise fees, totaling more than $500,000 in lost revenue. This year, there are multiple bills in the state legislature that aim to cut taxes on food and personal property.
Cass County will soon take up a new law passed by the state last year that will allow a significant tax cut to seniors on their real property taxes. These all contribute to a significant drop in the revenue we can collect with the passage of those proposed bills. The use tax, a tax that allows us to tax out-of-state and online purchases, helps our local brick and mortar businesses by removing the incentive to buy the same product online tax-free. And don't forget the thousands of delivery trucks delivering those tax-free items who use our streets over and over and over and don't pay a dime toward infrastructure maintenance. And then our police must investigate should those packages be stolen off a porch using time and resources that our tax dollars pay for. Had the use tax been in place in 2022, the city would have collected a little more than $1.3 million to go toward creating additional positions in police, public works, and parks. Due in part to large purchases from our incoming businesses at the Raymore Commerce Center, as Mr. Feuerborn alluded to, we would be on track to collect more than $1.9 million from 2023 online and out-of-state purchases. However, the numbers aren't in yet from the last quarter, so we don't really know what might have been collected last year if a use tax had been in place. The city is not a for-profit business. The city has limited resources, including our employees, which we have stretched thin in the areas of police, public works, and parks for far too long. It is necessary, we have invested more and more each year into large capital projects because it is necessary to do so, yet the list of needed improvements keeps growing. A use tax would allow us to fill that gap. A use tax would stay here locally and would make a significant difference in allowing us to staff those departments up to appropriate standards in order to be the best we can be in serving you, our residents. Thank you for allowing me to provide that statement this evening. I thought it was necessary to kind of have both sides of the story here. And that concludes my comments for this evening. We do have a reason to go into executive session, a couple of reasons, so I'd entertain a motion to do so.
Well done. Thank you for your final words.
Oh, thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we move into executive session.
Thank you, ma'am. Is there a second?
Yes, sir, I'll second the motion.
Motion been made and seconded to move into executive session. Could I have the roll call, please?
Councilmember Abdelgawad?
Yes.
Councilmember Baker?
Yes.
Councilmember Barber?
Yes.
Councilmember Burke?
Yes.
Councilmember Ingert?
Yes.
Councilmember Forster, absent. Councilmember Holman?
Yes.
Councilmember Townsend, absent.
Okay, we have a quorum. We'll now move on to executive session.